believe we're live. I think we are actually live. Uh Seems like we are. It is November the 2nd. Happy Halloween, happy November, happy everything. We're streaming live with OBS, so I don't know how many people might be in this chat, if any. So if anybody's here, let me know. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Uh, PC, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Phil Adams is here. Audio visual 100%. All right, so we got some folks here. PC is here. I think we will still lose. You cannot lose if you do not play, PC. Snoopy's here. He says he can hear me. All right, that's good. So we got the ticker going. We got the logos going. Todd is here. He says audio and visual good. So everything seems to be working. That's good. You never know these days. All right, so here we are. We got the chat going. Jits and Giants Finn is here. Joe Mike is here. Nothing but positive vibes on the bye week. You cannot lose if you do not play. Todd says, is the bell working? No. I mean, the bell's working. It's right here. But you can't hear it, right? I'm clicking it now. Tell me if you could hear the bell. I don't think so. I think in order to get this mic to work, we had to sacrifice the bell, Todd. Sorry. Sorry, buddy. We can't have everything. For example, in OBS, I can't tell how many people are here. Like when I'm in StreamYard or Restream, it tells me how many people are in the chat. OBS does not do that, and I do not have a plugin that, at least yet, tells me that. So we had to sacrifice that, and we had to sacrifice the music. Silent bell. Yeah, silent, right. So it's about the microphone. We could have used the other microphone, but that was causing me all sorts of problems. Phil says 13 in the chat. All right, that's a good number. We'll take 13. And now it says 19. So Phil is like the human counter. But yeah, I mean, so we had to make some sacrifices because OBS is free and StreamYard is a ripoff. You know? Howie's here. Howie. Howie. Yeah, it's one of those good old-fashioned names. Howie. Howie's here. We can't lose today. You cannot lose if you do not play. That's like a truism. Justin Jets is here. You think the Colts are real or fake? They seem pretty real, Justin. They seem pretty real. Lester Freeman? No, that wasn't Lester. He had a bunch of good ones. You cannot lose. That was what's that great actor? I'm not going to remember his name, but eventually he became the police chief. You know, he worked his way up. Man, I should rewatch The Wire, really. All 5 seasons. You know, every few years you should watch all 5 seasons of The Wire, you know? Just to remind yourself of good storytelling principles and things. But anyway, so yeah, we're not playing this week, but it's an important week because after all, what we do have is rumors. And after all, also, this is Coffee with Frankie. I do have the coffee. And although we're not sponsored by them, we also have Fuck the Refs coffee right here. I do recommend people pick this up. So when you're watching your football and the refs are screwing up the game like they always do, not just the Jets, well, you could at least enjoy some Fuck the Refs coffee from shawarmabrew.com. They do not sponsor me. I just think that's funny. That's Brandon Perna's company. He doesn't know me. He doesn't give me any money. But I think it's a worthwhile venture because if you watch college football, if you watch pro football, if you watch any football at all, you know the refs are fucking up this game big time. Big time. Todd says, I think if the Jets trade everyone and puts the team, yeah, but they're not going to trade everyone, Todd. What we're hearing and what we're seeing is that that we might make some targeted trades, things that make sense, but it's not going to be a fire sale, Todd. That's what all the reporting is pretty consistent. And it makes sense. Look at the trades that Muji has made since he got his staff together. They've all been very smart trades, including the latest one where we got a wide receiver for 2 years in a trade for a guy we were going to cut anyways in the offseason. Now, it's not the greatest receiver in the world. He'll probably be our wide receiver 5 next year, and maybe he does better. But so Joe Mike says, the one thing I'm looking for is this new coaching staff to come off the bye week, scheme a good game plan, and look prepared. Well, I think you're putting too much emphasis on coaching. The way to win football games is to have good football players, and we just don't have enough. Now, the game against the Browns is going to basically be how good can our offense be against their defense? Their defense is very good. So if our offense doesn't work, look, they got Myles Garrett and a bunch of really good players. I'd like to perform well against it, but I wouldn't expect it. But their offense isn't good. So can our defense play well against their bad offense? That's basically what the game is. Jojo, good morning. PC was, Lieutenant Daniels. Right. I forget that actor's name. That actor's no longer alive, but that is a great actor, that dude was, unfortunately. Yeah, Lieutenant Daniels. Remember when he, what scene came to mind, PC, was when when the cops go into that situation and they don't understand it's a trap in the ghetto, and the people in the ghetto start throwing bottles and rocks, and then they light things on fire, and it becomes a shit show. And Lieutenant Daniels shows up, and he's like, I got 2 Crown Vics that are on fire. I got 2 people in the hospital. And what valuable information did we obtain by coming into the projects? He was the best. What a great actor he was. Oh, such a shame that he passed away. BC says, yeah, he was one of my favorites, but a lot of times he would be acting with his eyes. You know what I mean? Very subtle. Not overly, now he could if he needed to be, but not overly, not overly histrionic. You know what I mean? A lot of times he would just be acting with his eyes only. Very subtle. Justin Jets, what is your go-to food? I don't really have a go-to food. It's whatever I got around. But man, do they try to sell you some food during some football games. Holy smokes. It is hard not to order some food that you see on your TV when you're watching football. Every commercial is some romanticized food item. It makes it look so good. So I try to keep it healthy these days. I got to cut down the carbs, Justin. I don't know what your situation is. But for old Frankie, we got to cut down on the carbs. If we cut down on the carbs, we can stay healthy. If we're eating carby stuff, no bueno for old Frankie. Tell you that much. My Italian genes, no bueno for carbs anyways. Blazette is here. Good morning. Hank G is here. Good morning to everyone. Now, the rumors that not many... Yeah, Phil, right? There's not too many ads for salads and fruit. Have a banana, Anna. So, yeah. So we were watching Sellers. Yeah, Lenora Sellers needs to go back to school. There's no doubt about it. I'm 100% on that. Todd says, my last meal was pizza. Yeah, I love pizza, but I can't eat a lot of it, Todd. I tell you. I mean, I could eat it, but then I'm waddling around, and we don't want to do that. We want Frankie nice and healthy, Todd. Leftover slabs. Yeah, that's what's good about pizza. It's still good in the morning, even if you eat it cold, right? But so what we're hearing is, in terms of these trades, is that there does seem to be great demand and short supply for things that we have a supply of on our roster. So now, when there's great demand, but there's short supply, what happens? This is Economics 101. Put it in the chat. When there's great demand, but low supply, what happens in the marketplace? AC says, yeah, carbs are bad. Well, they are for some people. I know some people could eat carbs all day. They never gain a pound. So, but me and carbs do not get along. Phil Adams got it. PC's got it. Prices go up. So everybody's got it. Okay, good. You guys are on the economic front. Yes, great demand, low supply equals price goes up, and that's good for us because if we're the ones who have some of this supply that is in great demand, we can charge more for it. And so really anxious to see what Muji comes up with. Now, today's games will be over. Most of the teams will be done by 4 or 5 o'clock, and then a few games late afternoon, and then Sunday night game, and then just one game tomorrow. So we might see some trades tonight, late tonight that have been maybe worked on already, but their teams are just waiting to see, how certain games go. Like one game we should keep a close eye on is the Bengals game. If the Bengals lose, they have a lot of people on their team that other teams are going to want. Trey Hendrickson, Logan Wilson, that are also the kind of people we have. So we would want that defensive end demand to be as high as possible and the supply to be as low as possible. Because if the Bengals win, and they're playing the Bears, so they could easily win, but they could also lose. Caleb's kind of up and down. But if the Bengals win, then they might deceive themselves to think they're still in it. And that's what we want. Because then they might say, we're not trading Trey Hendrickson. We're not trading Logan Wilson. We're not trading anyone. And that makes the price for our people go up. So that's what we have to see. Jojo says, Italians and carbs are not a good mix. Yeah, generally speaking, no. And it's weird because the Italian diet is largely carbs, if you think about it. Pasta and bread, that's as Italian as it gets. And yet, so many of us can't deal with carbs very well. Clem's got to be worth it first. If we could get something for Clemens, it'd be nice. Now, the reports are that we're really probably not going to trade Breece Hall unless we get some incredible trade or Jermaine Johnson. But Clemens, if somebody wants him for pretty much anything, we'll take a seventh. You know what I mean? We'll take a 2027 seventh because he's not coming back. We might as well just get draft capital for him. We're probably not going to get any. He's not going to probably factor into the comp pick formula anyway. So get what you can for him. But that's what I'm saying. Like if Hendrickson goes off the market, and the Dolphins are a whole other story. The Dolphins have 3 edge rushers that could go, but who knows what Champ Kelly wants to do? We have no idea. And so you want a team like the Bengals to win. The Dolphins are a total mystery box. Who knows? Justin Jets, no, he's been fine. He's getting double and triple teamed. He hasn't made the impact he did in the past because in the past we had a stacked defensive line. So he hasn't been great, but he's still pretty elite. Clemens for anything. Lazard is another one where, I saw something written recently where it was like the Steelers are still in the market for a wide receiver even after signing MVS. So I'm like, we got one. We got Alan Lazard. They might not want Lazard, but maybe they want Tyler Johnson. Why couldn't we trade them Tyler Johnson for a pick? They might want him. Phil says Italians in Europe. There's something about European uh, wheat, I think it is, which is, you need that to to make pasta and bread, where it doesn't have something in it, some ingredient, something, but America it does. And they say that's why Europeans, not just Italians, can eat more bread and pasta than Americans and not gain as much weight. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I saw something on it. I thought it was interesting. Howie, Jets versus the bye week. Yeah. Clemens playing well now. I think he ends up staying. Well, what's the point? Even if he is playing well now, Todd, if you can get something for him, he's not going to be part of the future. So it depends. I mean, if somebody wants to give us a seventh round pick in 2028, I mean, probably not. But if we can get anything substantial, you just have to think about the future, Todd. At this point in time, we got to think more about the future than this year. We don't want to totally, have a fire sale for this year, but we got to think about the future. If a person's not going to be here next year, you might as well get what you can for them, if anything. Will McDonald Will McDonald hasn't really been playing that well. He has 3 sacks. He's good. He hasn't been good against the run. He has not improved against the run. So that's a little bit troublesome. But what's interesting is that the reporting says the Jets, like it kind of mentions Will McDonald, but then it doesn't say they're getting a lot of calls on him. And the reporting's all about Jermaine Johnson, and the Jets want a second round pick for him, and they're trying to get a third for Brees and this and that. But they're not really mentioning a price for Will McDonald in all these reports. Now, all these reports you got to understand too, though, there could be smoke screens going on. These reporters are receiving their information from their sources, and a lot of their sources lie to them, to be honest. And, they do it artfully, of course, in ways that you can't ever really figure out once things happen. But just to get these rumors going, there's people who want certain things in certain front offices, and so they say certain things to reporters to get certain things out there. So you never really know what's true and what's not, there's some reporters are just terrible journalists, and you can count on them being just terrible journalists. But other than that, you just never really know. But you're not really hearing about what the Jets would take for Will McDonald. Will McDonald is basically half a player. He's good at rushing the passer, but against the run, he's not very good. At least not right now. So I don't know. I don't know what we would get for Will McDonald. No one's really reporting on it. Joe the Jet G says he's on tank watch. Justin says, I won't trade our edge rushers. Joe Mike says, I think Miami is more likely to be sellers. They have good pieces, Waddles, Phillips. Well, I don't think they're going to trade Waddle, but if they do, they're going to want a haul. Certainly the guy who is going to get traded is Matthew Judon. The second most likely guy to be traded is probably Bradley Chubb. And then Jalen Phillips depends on what they get for him. Fitzpatrick, same thing. That whole team, who knows what they're going to do. They have to make up a decision. What are they going to do with McDaniel? What are they going to do with Tua? So they have a lot of decisions to make. Is it just a complete tear down, rebuild, 5-year plan? Which is probably what they need to do. They don't have a lot of pieces, but are they willing to do that, or do they just want to build up around Tua and just say, look, Tua can be successful if you give him certain circumstances. We've seen it, and let's just do that. They might decide to do that, or they might decide, no, this is a 5-year. It's hard for me to believe it's going to be a 5-year rebuild for the Dolphins, though, because their owner, Stephen Ross, is very old. I don't think he wants to go through another 5-year rebuild. So they have a lot of decisions to make. They're kind of fascinating. I had the idea of, if they want to trade Waddle, why not trade him to the Jets? Now you might say, wait a minute, Frankie. That doesn't make any sense because they're in our division. Why would they do that? Well, if they're going to rebuild and we could give them a hefty price for Waddle, then they might say to themselves, well, he's not going to come back to haunt us. It's the Jets. Let's bury him over there. Let's get tons of draft capital and let's build it up. So this is an unconventional idea, I understand. But they might say to themselves, look, the best place for him to go if we don't want him to come back and haunt us is the Jets. They don't have a quarterback. They don't know what they're doing with quarterbacks. They have a history of utter futility. They have another defensive head coach. What are the chances Waddle comes back to haunt us if we trade him to the Jets? Which isn't a terrible idea. And then if we were to get him, it'd probably be a second round pick plus more, but probably starting with that. But then you'd say, well, we were going to take a wide receiver there anyway. Why not just take Waddle? You know what I mean? And so it's an unconventional idea, but I think, they're saying that Champ Kelly is much more inclined to make deals, is the initial intel on Champ Kelly, who's the interim GM there and might eventually just become the regular old GM. Just give him the job. But I don't know, man. If we give him a good enough deal, they might give us Waddle and just say, look, that's the best place for him to not come back and haunt us. You know what I mean? If we give them the best deal. I mean, obviously, if they want to trade him, they could trade him away to the NFC somewhere, but what if nobody's giving them the same deal? So I don't know what they're going to do. They got to make up their minds about what kind of a rebuild they're going to do down there. It's too many questions. But that's what's fascinating about the next few days. We'll learn about the Jets. We'll learn about the Dolphins. What are they doing? Do they believe in Tua or not? That's been an ongoing debate for 5 fucking years now. It's funny. For 5 years, they've been debating, is Tua the guy or is Tua not the guy? And it's gone back and forth. Early on, it looked like no, no, no. Then it looked like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's like, no, 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 maybe. So, boy, oh, boy. Yeah, the Saints are a team to watch now. I personally think Tyler Shuck is the guy. So, but we would want Tyler Shuck to play well and for the Saints to win some ball games. But yeah. Justin wants to trade Brees. Joe Mike says, no way. I could see Brees getting the Cook contract. No, I don't think he's as accomplished as Cook. Probably a little less. I'd have to take a look and compare them. But don't forget, Brees has not made an all-pro team. He has not made a Pro Bowl. He has some decent stats, of course. Well, you can get him for a reasonable contract. Jojo says, I'd love Waddle. Yeah, a lot of teams would. It just depends on the price. And even though it's in division, I think they could look at it and go, that's the perfect place for him. He's not gonna come back and haunt us. The Jets don't know what they're doing. They might think to themselves, and very, they're not wrong. Justin says, I'm not a film guy. Well, there you go. But based on my eyes, Cook looks a lot better post-injury than Brees. Maybe their O-line looks better. Yeah. I mean, I'm not looking. They're both good running backs, the way I'd look at it. But running backs are very dependent on the O-line and the offense in general. So, for example, he also has a quarterback named Josh Allen. You may have heard of him, Justin. I don't know if you've heard of Josh Allen. But he's like a perennial MVP candidate. And you have to honor the threat of Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things to you, right? He's like one of the most elite quarterbacks, and that helps out Cook or any running back that they have. Now, Cook's very good, don't get me wrong. But between their O-line and between, having Josh Allen, the passing threat at any moment can take the top of your defense off in 2 seconds, that helps Cook out. We haven't had that, if you notice. Our offensive line hasn't been as consistent. It's starting to stabilize this year a bit. But we haven't had the quarterback, right? That helps out Cook more than Brees. If I were Brees's agent, I'd be like, look, I can't. If I were Brees's agent, I'd be like, Brees is way better than Cook. Look at the situation that they have. Cook has a winning team, which means he um, gets more rushes at the end of games when teams are tired. Right? He has an elite quarterback that everybody has to game plan for, meaning they're not going to stack the box against them. So Brian says audio's getting choppy. I wonder why. La la la. Let me know if the audio's getting choppy. It may be when I do volumes too high. Let me turn down the volume. Oh, somebody says audio perfect for me. All right, maybe that's just you, Brian. Um, so, all right, Phil says not choppy here. Okay, sorry, Brian. Um, so just to finish up on Cook, if I were Cook's agent, if I were Brees's agent, I would say, look, James Cook is a good comp, except that um, uh, he has an elite quarterback with a line that's been together for a long time and a winning team with lots of games where the Bills are ahead by a lot at the end, et cetera, et cetera. The Jets have a totally different situation. They've never had a quarterback good situation going all the way back, but certainly since Brees has been here, their O line's been up and down, and they're not a winning team. So if I were Brees's agent, that's what I would say about James Cook, and the Jets would say, okay, yeah, that's true. But then again, he's never been to the Pro Bowl. He's never been All Pro. But there's a middle ground where you could get a fair contract, fair to the player and fair to the club that makes sense with Brees, I think. BC says I'd keep Brees unless some team. Yeah, that's pretty much how they're approaching it. It seems like. So Tua's cap hit. It depends on what you're talking about in terms of cap hit. If you were just to cut him in the offseason, like as soon as which they're not going to do. But if they did that, it's $100 million of a cap hit. So if they were to cut him as soon as the Super Bowl's over, let's say, the next day, they just say, get out of here, Tua. It's $100 million cap hit. So they're not doing that. If they cut him after June 1st, it goes down. If they trade him, it's different. And I think it's 45 with a trade. And if they trade him after June 1st, then it's also different because you've paid him more money at that point. So it depends how you look at the cap hit. It's not completely unmanageable, but it's pretty bad. And I'm not sure they want to do the Denver Broncos plan. I'm just not sure they do. So they can get rid of him. It's tough. The best thing to do if they were going to say we don't want Tua here, the best thing to probably do for next year is just bench him, get the rookie, and either do the bridge thing or bench him at some point. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see. Joe the Jet CG says if we get pick two, the best QB to pick there is Ty Simpson. And well, Ty Simpson, for me, the quarterback buckets are Simpson, Mendoza, and Moore. Now, I mean, that's the first bucket. That's bucket one. But number one, we don't know who's coming out. Ty Simpson may go back. We don't know. It's pretty clear Mendoza's probably coming out. But Dante Moore could easily go back. Ty Simpson could go back. So we got to wait to see who declares. Let's hope a lot of people declare. Make it easier for us. But yeah, Ty Simpson, for me, Ty Simpson's number one as of right now. As of right now, with a lot of the season left to go, we'll be grading these QBs. And by the way, if you join the inner circle, you get all the quarterback grading that I do. You get it by joining the inner circle. So I would incentivize folks. You might want to join $2 a month. It's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. Now, speaking of the wide receiver room, you may not know that Arian Smith has actually been performing really well. What do you mean? He doesn't have much production. Well, if you read Dick Chimney's column today, he makes the case that Arian Smith, while fast, isn't good because his yards per route run is bad. It's very low. But the reason for that is we're not throwing him the ball. Now, if you follow me on X or if you're an Inner Circle member, you would already know that Arian Smith has one of the best open rates, in other words, separation rates. In other words, he's getting open in the entire NFL. Did you know that about Arian Smith? He's getting open at a top 5 rate in the whole NFL. So when he's running these routes, he's open. He's getting separation, according to all the metrics. But we're not throwing him the ball because we all know why. We have a quarterback who, whether it's the O-line or himself or, there's always things going wrong. Hasn't been able to get to his third and fourth option on these routes, on these route combos. And Arian Smith is not the number one option on these route combinations usually. So we haven't been able to get him the ball. But he's been doing a good job. This is the point I want to make. And so Arian Smith so far has been doing a good job at what we're asking him to do, even though he doesn't have any production really. And the metrics tell us that. And if you look on film, no matter how you look at it, Arian Smith is doing a nice job. That being the case, we have now at least 2 receivers, right? Garrett Wilson, Arian Smith. They're both going to be on the team next year. Then you add in John Mechie. I think Mechie, unless he totally flames out and is terrible, which I don't think he will be, he'll probably make the roster next year as a restricted free agent. That's going to be a $4 or $5 million contract. That's easy, to accept. So that's 3 receivers that we got. Now, we got Irv Charles coming back at some point. The Wolf has to come back. And that could be our wide receiver 6. And what about Isaiah Williams? Now, Isaiah Williams has been playing really well on special teams. He was the special teams player of the week last week. He won an award both on kick returns, punt returns, and you saw him being used as a wide receiver, and he played really well. He had a 25-yard end around. He caught the balls we threw to him. So I think Isaiah Williams next year, you could sign him for $2-3 million and have him be wide receiver 4. Wide receiver 4 on any roster in the NFL has to be a key player on special teams. Well, Isaiah Williams can be our kick returner, one of our kick returners, our punt returner, and our wide receiver 4 if he keeps playing like he has been. Well, if that's the case, our entire wide receiver room is done except for one thing, which is wide receiver 2. So either a free agent, a trade, or in the draft. It depends how much draft capital that Muji acquires here in the next few days. But it's going to be hard to find a wide receiver 2 in the draft and address the defense sufficiently. So, it's really about finding that wide receiver 2 somewhere, which is where I came up with the idea for Waddle. But even though that's a far out idea, I get it. But the wide receiver room probably isn't as bad as we think. I mean, that John Mechie trade was a pretty good one to acquire a wide receiver 5, So what do you guys think about our wide receiver room? Joe says, yeah. No, the best thing to do, Joe, is the Giants plan. In other words, you don't have a predetermined plan. The plan is that the rookie quarterback has to hit certain milestones and do certain things. So you have some veterans ahead of him, just like the Giants had 2 veterans ahead of Dart. And then the rookie comes in and you have a plan for him. And if he hits the milestones in your plan and he's just killing it, then he accelerates. And if not, then he decelerates. And you let the rookie determine when he plays by how he does all the things you're asking him to do. I like the Giants plan a lot for how they treated Jackson Dart, and I hope we do the same thing. Yeah, he can't throw himself the ball, right, Hank? So he's been doing a good job. Don't let idiots like Dick Chimney tell you otherwise. He's going to look like Dick Chimney just cherry-picked yards per route run in his column today. That's an asshat thing to do. Dick Chimney just continues to be an asshat. Well, it's a thing where he's got to find something to get the Jet fan riled up about. That's his whole job, rile up the Jet fans. And so, a pick that, Aaron Glenn stumped for and tried to make fun of the media for, if you remember, and they never forget when you do that. Remember when he said, "Oh, the guy you said couldn't catch," he said to the media, trying to scold them. Well, when you do that, the media is never going to forget, and then they're going to cherry pick their stat. So the stat that he cherry picked was yards per route run. And the reason he did that is he's running a lot of routes, he's playing, so that's a good thing. But of course, he doesn't have many yards per route run because we're not throwing him the ball much. So he cherry picks that to make him look bad. Very bad. Very bad journalism, I would say. Yeah, we got to get him the ball more, and see how he does. But so far, so good. Justin Jets, I think starting or sitting young quarterback is situational. Yeah. Why have a predetermined plan in terms of let's bring him in, let's give ourselves optionality. If he kills the milestones that we give him and if he's looking great, okay, fine. If he needs a little more time, fine. Give yourself optionality and don't put so much pressure on him. Give him training wheels, give him a ramp up. There's no reason to just overwhelm a kid. There's just no reason for it. We got all the time in the world, really. If we can, get a guy who could eventually be the guy, if it takes a year, so be it. I mean, who cares? We got to get a guy. You got to get a guy. I mean, the Bills have Josh Allen, and they'll have him for the next 10 years at least. The Patriots have Drake May, and they'll have him for the next 15 years at least. Those two are elite. The Dolphins, we all know they got a lot of decisions to make. We'll see what they do. But we got two teams in our division that have elite quarterbacks. I don't know if you guys understand how elite Drake May is, but he's elite already. So that's a problem for us. That's a big, big problem. Old Dick is a wooden spoon merchant. I just think he's an asshat, and I just don't understand people like the Badlands crew inviting him to their events. We've got the ESPN reporter here. Oh, the guy who shits on your team all the time? Like, how's that cool by the Badlands people? If any of you talk to the Badlands people, I don't. But if you do, why is it cool that they invited Dick Chimney to their live event? Like, why is that okay? It's not okay. This guy shits on the Jets constantly. This is the guy who makes a living, and a very good living, shitting on the Jets, gets invited to the Badlands event, which is supposed to be a fan-run, organization that's opposed to the mainstream media. It's supposed to be. But they're not, of course. Why is that okay? Jets and Giants, Frankie, I agree with you. They should get an experienced QB coach and draft a quarterback that can process quickly and has started. Well, you're not going to get all those things, Jets and Giants, Finn. So Charles London's going to be the quarterback coach. He is experienced. You may not like who he's coached, but he is experienced. So we already have that. Process quickly, that's Ty Simpson and Mendoza. And then, but the problem is, started more than 2-3 seasons. That's the knock on Simpson, for example, and Dante Moore. So Dante Moore and Simpson are the ones that are lacking in the experience. And Simpson, while he's a junior now, I think, or a red shirts, no, he's a junior now. But he sat behind Milroe and people like that, so he doesn't have as much starting experience. So if you're taking a Simpson, that's the one thing on the resume that you don't like. So you can't get everything you want, Jits and Jinsfin. Even Woody must know throwing a rookie quarterback in at the deep end don't work. Yeah, now, if he comes in and he's just amazing, like C.J. Stroud or something like that, and he's just blowing the doors off everything, all right, But I do think it needs to be a ramp up. It needs to be training wheels. There needs to be a plan where it's like no pressure. We got these veterans. One of them can be Fields. Another one can be another $10 million veteran that you get. Doesn't matter who. Brissett, Mariota, just any of the backups that are always on the market every year. Just get one of them. Then we got two of them, as one, and then as a backup, in case the first one gets injured or something. And then you get the rookie, and you just understand that the rookie, you're watching him and you're setting milestones for him, and you're watching how he does leadership stuff, and you're watching how the teammates respond to him, and you're watching all of those things that we need to watch. And if he accelerates it, then fine. BBA says Winston? Jameis? It depends if you like Jameis's personality. Some people like it, some people don't. He has a very over-the-top, extroverted personality. Some people like those folks. Some people don't. But, yeah, Winston, he's a good dude. Jameis Winston. So PC says, I'm very skeptical of the wide receiver room. Yeah, I said we definitely need a wide receiver too. Wide receiver 3 is going to be Arian. Like, it's going to be Arian. We could want something better, but he's going to be here. And then, and that's why I was bringing up his separation stats, PC, because he's wide receiver 3. And then wide receiver 4, if Isaiah Williams keeps playing like he has been, he's basically the perfect wide receiver 4. And then wide receiver 5 is John Mechie. Why not? John Mechie as wide receiver 5 is very good. So, and then Irv Charles is going to come back and be the wolf on special teams. He could be wide receiver 6. So all that leaves is wide receiver 2, but we got to find it somewhere, PC. Now, it's going to be hard to find it in the draft because the first pick we have has got to go to quarterback pretty much. And then the second pick, do you want to go offense again? We need edge rushers. We need safeties, but you can find safeties in the 4th round. But we need edge rushers. That second round pick is probably got to be an edge rusher, right? And is Quincy here next year? If not, that second round pick could be a linebacker. Then again, we could go wide receiver there, but then again, the really good wide receivers are going to be gone in round 1 usually. So I don't know. We'll see. Phil Adams, what is a reasonable amount of time? This idea of culture is really overblown, Phil. The culture is having good players. That's what. So we got to. It doesn't. What matters is that Aaron Glenn is going to get at least 3 years. So by that next year, this is how it's going to go, Phil. This year's a wash. It's over. We're just evaluating, Next year, we need to see improvement. Next year, we need to see improvement. We need to see the plan coming together. We need to understand what we're doing at quarterback, whatever that is, and it needs to make sense. And we need to see improvement. And then year 3, we need to be winning, basically. And that's been the pattern of Woody. Woody will be hands off until then, but then if it's not working, then he gets panicky and bad things start happening. But I think that's what it is. And the culture will be if we have enough good players and a good quarterback and we start winning. And if we start winning, the culture will automatically start improving. Like, wow, look at this culture. It's called winning. Winning. The culture is winning. We want to win. You play to win the game. Joe Mike says, who knew that Woody was a master motivator? What? Not sure what you're referring to there, Joe. Knowing the Jets will draft a quarterback, give him the starting job before he earns it, and pray. Then when he sucks, we got to hear about how bad. Yeah, so I wouldn't do that, Justin. I think we need to have, like I said, think we need to have a smart plan. Like what the Giants did with Dart. That was smart, a smart plan, I think. Let him come in, let him get his bearings. The NFL is a different place. Let him figure it out. And you know, let's just do that. And you can do that. You can set up the situation before the draft. So if we sign, let's say it's Mariota, I like him, but and then we have Fields and Mariota there. When we have Fields and Mariota there, then the media won't be as quick to say whoever we draft is the savior, like they did with Zach Wilson, like Rich Eisen, that idiot, going on air and saying, "Is this the savior of the New York Jets franchise?" Why not put a little pressure on him there, Richie? And of course, Rich Eisen purports to be a Jet fan, but he's not. I mean, come on. Would a Jet fan really do that? Well, what he is a Rich Eisen fan. That's what he is. Cares about Rich Eisen. All right, let's check over here and see if there's any news as these games are getting closer today. It's 10:45 in the morning on the East Coast. They're doing their pictures of people walking into the stadia. Some of them have some Halloween outfits on. Game bill, what do I? Yeah, there's probably not going to be any, you know, any kind of news until some of these games are over and then these teams start making some maneuvers. Inside look at how the Patriot offensive coaches. Yeah, like here's an interesting thing about the Patriots. Josh McDaniels now is a genius again. It's funny how Josh McDaniels is a complete genius when he has a Tom Brady or a Drake May. If he has an elite quarterback, all of a sudden Josh McDaniels is the smartest man on earth. Yeah, funny how that happened. Breaking down Tua, jersey giveaway. So, yeah, there's not going to be any news until at least tonight, probably. Rap sheet says Miami make at least one trade. Yeah, I mean, you would think Miami could trade, Matt Judon. They don't need Matthew Judon. But does anybody want Matthew Judon? That's a question. Uh, do, 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 do. Yeah. Um, and the Jet beat writers, by the way, are taking time off. I mean, let's be honest. They're not even posting anything. At least Dick Chimney posts something. At least he writes a column. I mean, Rosenblatt and Hughes are like out to lunch. I bet you they're taking their little mini vacations at the moment. Probably coming back tomorrow. So, yeah, nothing going on news wise. So yeah, it's well, there's Aaron Rodgers checking in. The Steelers are 4-3. They're starting to come back to earth, and one of those was because of a 60-yard field goal against us. Why couldn't that frickin' field goal just hit the frickin' upright? You know what I mean? Would have made so much of a difference. If you think about it. 60-yard field goal, motherfucker hits against us. Robert Saleh is back at MetLife Stadium today as the 49ers face the Gigantes. So there's that. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this evening, tomorrow, and then of course Tuesday, the big day, Tuesday. Jets posting photographs of a beach. Yeah. All right. So, not a lot going on. Let me know if you guys have anything else. It's a pretty boring weekend as far as the Jets are concerned. I will say, the Inner Circle members, you have updated information. Always look on the posts if you are already in the Inner Circle, like PC Salami is. Um, Always look at the posts section of the channel. YouTube doesn't always throw those out there. But that's where a lot of the stuff is going to be for you. So I would recommend checking out the posts if you're not already. And there's a lot of links to the spreadsheets and this and that and so forth and so on. Phil says, "Are you watching a game?" Yeah, I'll watch a couple of the games. Uh, you know, see which ones make the most sense to watch. I might watch that Bengals game to see, you know, see how they do. See if they're still delusional. You know, Joe Flacco got hurt in the game he played against us, and now he's playing with a AC joint or something. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs, because they're a big team that could be sellers, they could be buyers. No one knows what they're doing. So, and a lot of it's going to depend on what they do today. So I might watch that one. There's not a lot of great games going on, to be honest. There's none that I'm really hyped up about. AR staring at a 4-game losing streak unless he rises up. Could be 4-5 a week from tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, they haven't been playing that great, and their defense isn't that great either. And, I mean, imagine if that 60-yarder hit the damn upright. You know what I'm saying? Hughes is yeah, he probably is. I mean, you can't blame the guys, I guess, for taking time off, but man, they have an easy job, dude. Like, is it really that stressful to write about and talk about the Jets on their social media and stuff? PC says, yeah, I'm on the posts all the time. Yeah, so tell them, Salami, it's great, right? But a lot of people, I think, don't realize there's all that information on the posts, because I don't think YouTube pushes it out that much, especially if you don't have your notifications set up. So make sure if you want to join, if you do join in the future, or if you already joined, check out the posts. I put lots of stuff on there, exclusive items, including all the quarterback grading for all the college QBs and for the Jet quarterbacks. Ravens are good. Yeah, the Ravens are definitely going to win that division, I think. I mean, Lamar made the Dolphins look like terrible. Like he can do. I mean, Lamar's Lamar. Once they have Lamar, it doesn't matter how many injuries they have on defense. He'll do what he does. It's the beauty of having an elite quarterback. So, yeah. But the Bengals, are in that division, and they're delusional, and they think, well, if we could just hang on until Burrow comes back. It's like, man, I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in the Steelers, but I believe in the Ravens. So we'll have to see. All right, so we'll probably do videos, like obviously if the Jets make any trades and all that, there'll be videos going up about that. I might do a video about this wide receiver room. I'm kind of fascinated with this idea of Muji rebuilding that room on the fly. So you might see a video about that. And then otherwise, once Wednesday comes around, it'll be normal type stuff, news coming out with the Jets playing a game next week. We got to face the Browns. That game, basically, they have a ferocious defense and not a great offense. So can our offense score against the ferocious defense? Can our defense dominate their offense? They're starting Dylan Gabriel in that game. So, for all we know, Dylan Gabriel will go off against us. But with that being said, I think we'll call it a Sunday. Thanks for joining Coffee with Frankie, and we will see you all next time.